fascinating day so far. Here in the UK, we've seen shares drop quite considerably following those falls in Asia and the US yesterday. We've had some JOLTS figures as well, where you are, Nick, which have made very interesting reading because they were very disappointing. And that has had an effect amongst other data on what we think the Fed is going to do this month as far as interest rates are concerned. So, Nick, where do you want to start?
Yeah, and Johnny, just to touch quickly on those data points that you mentioned, this morning we had the JOLTS job openings report, and some of these economic data points, over time, they shift in their meaningfulness to the markets. And as we've discussed in the podcast recently, labor statistics have really taken center stage here in the last few weeks since the Fed's transition more focusing towards the labor market, according to Fed Chair Powell. So this number this morning was not at all what the market was looking for. We had a forecast of the JOLTS job openings. Of course, the job availability in the United States is an important impact or an important indicator of job statistics. Well, we forecasted for 8.09 million job openings. What we got this morning was 7.67 million. So a big miss there. But not only that, we saw the revisions to the previous reported number go down from 8.18 million down to 7.91 million. So the moral of the story here is that we saw a pretty substantial slide in job openings in the United States. And weak jobs data ahead of an NFP report and ahead of a Fed meeting has the potential to very much spook the markets. Now, it is important to mention to listeners that the NFP report is definitely the highlight event of the week, but this doesn't start us off in the right direction. With unemployment claims tomorrow, which we have not seen, as well as NFP on Friday, there is plenty of room for this number to be, kind of corrected or improved upon based on those other statistics. But it definitely spooked the markets. We actually saw the dollar index at the time of recording, it's down 0.5%, down to 101.27. Again, at the time of us recording this podcast. And this dollar index, I'm looking at it on a daily chart. It's been in a pretty consistent downward trend. We had a bit of a bounce the last week or so, but some weakness coming in with those JOLTS numbers this morning. It is worth mentioning that with jobs data taking center stage, JOLTS numbers are moving a lot more now than they may have done, several months ago. Just like unemployment claims are also moving a lot more now. So the market is very sensitive to this data, and we will have to see. We also see stocks modestly higher here today, up 0.4%, which, for the S&P 500, which is a bounce back. But you have to remember yesterday's slide was pretty big for the indices. We saw, the S&P 500 down somewhere around 2.5%. Which was, a meaningful slide. So a bit of a bounce back today ahead of those big jobs numbers. But again, JOLTS setting the scene. And I think we were just discussing before we started recording here about our shock across all three of us that the bond market has changed their outlook a little bit very quickly on the FedWatch tool, indicating actually that the September meeting now has a 47% chance of a 50 basis point interest rate cut in the federal funds overnight rate, which is, a pretty surprising change. We saw that, it was back towards the low, 30s at one point. I saw it in that range, and now it's jumped up to 47% with just weeks to go. Now, of course, as I mentioned earlier, it is worth paying close attention mostly this week to the NFP report. When we see this 47%, I think it's probably a dangerous thing to jump to conclusions on what's going to happen, because that NFP report will either swing this greatly further in favor of a 50-point cut, or it could solidly reject that idea. So just very much depends on Friday's number, and specifically how much they beat or miss from the forecast that is currently set. So that's what we've got on the labor front, but we also had some interesting stuff happen in Canada, right? If you enjoyed this video from the Market Insights Market Pulse podcast, you can listen to the full episode by clicking the link down below in the description. You can find us on your favorite podcasting apps, and again, we post several times a week, so if you're looking for market updates throughout the week, this is the place to be. Whether you're in the car on the way to work or something like that, make sure to tune in to get the latest. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.